I used to think it was a compliment when people called me easy. Easy to be around, easy to love, easy to handle. Somewhere along the way, I made it a goal, not to be loved, but to be manageable. I started paying attention to how little space I could take up without disappearing completely. I chose my words like I was diffusing something, even when nothing was actually burning. He never asked me to do this. That's the part I keep circling back to. He didn't roll his eyes when I had opinions. He didn't sigh when I felt insecure. He didn't make rules for what was acceptable and what wasn't. I just wanted the relationship to stay calm, so I calibrated myself to whatever would keep it that way. I called it emotional maturity. I called it growth. I called it love. But really, I was negotiating with myself, trading pieces of who I was for the promise of being someone easier to keep. I'm not sure when it became a habit, maybe the first time I bit back a question or canceled a feeling before it reached the surface. At first, it felt like kindness. Soon, it felt like erasure. There's a strange kind of pride in being the one who never needs anything. I told myself I was evolving. I wasn't like the people who argued over texts or cried when plans changed. I didn't chase, didn't cling, didn't complain. If something hurt, I swallowed it. If something confused me, I solved it alone. I kept telling myself, this is what adults do. They handle themselves. And he was always calm, reliable, almost impossible to resent. That made it harder. There was no storm to push against, no injustice to point at. He was good. That was the problem. My silence didn't protect me from cruelty. It protected me from vulnerability. So I began translating everything I felt into lighter versions of itself. Confusion became, it's fine. Disappointment became, don't worry about it. Loneliness became, I'm just tired. The worst part was how natural it started to feel, like maybe this was what compatibility was, the art of wanting less. I don't think he ever realized it was happening. Why would he? I never gave him evidence that something was wrong. Every time he asked, "Are you okay?" I gave him the same practiced answer. "Yeah, all good." And he accepted it, the same way anyone would when the person they trust says they're fine. He wasn't indifferent, just unaware. I built a version of myself that didn't need anything, and then I resented him for believing it. It was like I was shrinking in plain sight, and he kept smiling because he didn't know he was watching a disappearance. He liked who I became. I hated that I couldn't blame him for that. It happened on an ordinary night. We were out with friends. Someone asked what movie we should watch, and I heard myself say, "Whatever you want." I've said that sentence thousands of times, but this time I heard it. I heard myself. And I realized I genuinely didn't know what I wanted anymore. Not just about movies, about anything. I watched the conversation move on without me, like a train I used to be on. Everyone laughed, everyone made plans. I nodded along. And I felt this quiet panic. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just a soft, sinking awareness. I had been editing myself for so long that I couldn't remember the unedited version. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't mine either. It was just what happens when you confuse disappearing with loving someone. There was no confrontation, no speech, no tears, just a small promise I made to myself in the car ride home. I'm going to stop making myself easy. I didn't announce it, I didn't warn him, I didn't ask for permission. I just began practicing choosing things again, even small things. I like this restaurant better. I don't actually feel okay about that. That hurt my feelings. I need a minute. I want something different than you do. He looked surprised at first. Not angry, not defensive, just surprised, like someone seeing a door where they thought there was a wall. And in that surprise, I remembered something. No one forced me to disappear, and no one can stop me from returning. I don't know what happens next. I'm not claiming victory. I'm not casting blame. I'm just learning how to take up space again. Quietly. Slowly. Like breathing after holding it for too long. Not to be harder to love, just to be there when I'm loved.